Now, it's been another week of turmoil on the UK financial markets, but in this video, I want to give you 10 things that you should take away from what's happening in the UK and learn from when investing in the future. And the first thing is this. UK has a total government debt to GDP now, which is very, very high, higher than the EU average. And it makes the UK less investable simply because, as we've seen at the moment, the government is trying to cut taxes. But when you have a high total government debt to GDP, it becomes much, much more difficult. And we've seen how the markets have reacted to this. And this is why I talk about this very often in my videos, and I advocate investing in countries with low total government debt to GDP. For example, Bulgaria being one, where the total government debt to GDP is around 20%, about a fifth of what it is in the UK, and taxes are already low in Bulgaria. And look at the contrast in the UK. Total government debt to GDP is very high, and taxes now are also quite high. Number two, let's talk about individual debt as well. Now, individual debt also matters because the country becomes very sensitive to interest rate rises. Now, at the moment, the UK is also suffering a lot simply because interest rates are expected to go up very heavily in the next year or so. In the UK to around 6%. And the UK, with individuals that do borrow a lot of money, in particular to buy property or to finance purchase of cars, is going to suffer a lot more than many southern European countries where people tend to buy property or a lot of property in cash or make purchases in cash rather than borrow. So these countries, for example, like Italy, Portugal, Spain, are much less sensitive to interest rate rises. But the UK, we cannot say this for the UK, and this is why the UK is in a lot of trouble. It has really been binging over borrowing in the last 15 to 20 years. Number three, now, citizenship by investment programs or investor visas do matter as well when it comes to making a country attractive. And we've seen countries like Cyprus, Malta, Greece, Portugal use this quite effectively, although unfortunately the European Union is reining this in, and I'm totally against that. But the UK, having left the European Union, instead of expanding potentially this program, it got rid of its investor visa, thereby signaling to foreign investors that their money is not welcome in the country. And this, again, is a bad sign and something you should look out for when investing abroad. Number four, good free trade deals are very, very, very important. Now, as you know, the UK has left the European Union, but more importantly, it's left the single market and the customs union. But unfortunately, it's not really done any free trade deals of note. It's only done Japan, Australia, New Zealand, which are going to add virtually nothing to the UK economy. And the problem is, even the deal at the moment with India is in slight jeopardy. But it's going to need, even if the deal with India goes through, the UK is going to need many, many, many more of these deals to make up for losing the single market deal it had before with the rest of the European Union. Number five, and this is very important, diversification. Now, we've seen even in a stable country like the UK, things can go wrong. So when investing, you must diversify your portfolio, whether you're investing in shares or property. If you're investing in a few properties, do not put all your eggs in one basket and invest in one country. Same for shares, because even a country which in the past was as stable as the United Kingdom, things can go wrong, and they are going wrong, and they're going wrong quite spectacularly. Number six, politics. Politics, unfortunately, does play a pivotal role when it comes to investing in a foreign country. And we've seen in the UK, it's been very unstable over the last few years. The UK has had 4 leaders over the last 6 years or so, and potentially the new leader, Liz Truss, may fall pretty soon. So the UK is becoming a very, very unstable country. And if we look at the leadership has really left a lot to be desired. In particular, the reign of Boris Johnson, we saw with the lockdown parties, and it really did tarnish British image abroad. And leading on, number 7, credibility. The UK over the last 6 to 7 years has lost a lot of credibility simply because it threatened to break international law. It's unilaterally trying to change the deal with the Northern Ireland Protocol, and this does spook a lot of foreign investors because it shows a lack of credibility and a lack of being able to have faith in UK market and UK politicians. Number 8, it's better to avoid legacy brands, and this is another lesson we have to learn. The UK is becoming more of a legacy brand, those old brands which still think that they are the leaders, but they are being caught up. Other countries that we can put in this category as legacy brands are the US, Australia, New Zealand, and many other Western European countries like Italy, France, and Portugal, Germany, simply because they're mature markets. And in general, it's best to go for markets which are less mature, but do offer a lot of possibilities of growth. Number 9, immigration strategy also matters. Now, we've seen in the UK, after Brexit and the UK living the single market, there has been a terrible shortage of people in the labour market. Very, very important shortages, even in things like doctors coming from the European Union to the UK. I've seen it myself. I've spoken to many Europeans who are no longer coming to the UK, even when visas are offered, simply because it's much easier to move from one EU to another EU country, and it doesn't have to be the UK. You can move, for example, from Italy to Scandinavia, Italy to Germany. So in Italy, for example, there are a lot of surpluses of doctors and nurses, but whereas they used to come to the UK, they are now going to other European countries. And finally, number 10, look at the state of the public sector as well in the country you're investing in. And the UK is in big, big trouble. So if you look at its health system, the health system is on the verge of collapse. 1 in 8 people in the UK is on a hospital waiting list. And the UK is, again, in this sector, lacking for people who work in the public health system. So whereas around 10% came from the European Union, it's at now only 5%. But what Britain has failed to do, it's failed to actually replace a lot of these workers. And it needs deals with, for example, India. So one way out of this could be to have a free trade deal with India and allow doctors, nurses, etc. to move more freely to the UK. And we've seen in a country like the UK, strikes are becoming now almost the norm because with lack of workers and inflation, people are demanding higher wages. They don't get them, they go on strike. And in many ways, the UK is following what I call countries like Italy and France, where strikes really became the norm. Although there's fewer strikes in countries like Italy, the UK is now following this path. And it's a very, very dangerous path because when you have these type of things happening in a country, it often leads to very low growth. And I think the UK is following the pattern of Italy. So very high debt, high taxes, lack of skilled workers, and leading to more strikes and not a great future. So anyway, let me know your thoughts on this. Will the UK get out of this? I'm not sure. But if you're in the UK or if you're invested in the UK, please do diversify because the UK is in financial trouble. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks ever so much for watching this video, and I shall see you on the next one.